2학년 때 중퇴를 하고 참 먹고 살 것도 없고 하니까 배도 고프고 하니까는 배나 타면 설마 밥이라도 하나 얻어먹겠나 싶어서 그래서 그래 배에 갔거든요. 안생아, 이제라도 네가 살아. 뭐 없는 반찬인데 쌀밥 한 그릇 해가지고 내 일로 배부르게 먹이겠다. 어쩌든지 살았으면 살았다, 죽었으면 죽었다. 생사하기라도 좀 하게끔 만들어둬라. 나는 그거야 아니다. 나는 네 쌀밥한테 해주는 그거야 나는 아니다.
맨발로 손님을 맞이합니다. 빛바랜 흑백 사진을 뚫어지게 바라보는
Ganshim Lee can't hold back her tears when she recognizes her son's face among other abductees in North Korea in the faded black and white photograph. The abduction of South Korean citizens by North Korea started during the Korean War, but continued long after. 3,835 South Korean citizens were abducted in the decades following the Korean War. 516 of them are still detained in North Korea. The families of these 516 abductees are still waiting for them to come home.
The Commission of Inquiry on the Democratic People's Republic of Korea has found systematic, widespread and grave human rights violations occurring in that country. It has also found a disturbing array of crimes against humanity. These crimes arise from policies established at the highest level of the state. Authorities of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the Commission of Inquiry challenges you to respect the human rights of your citizens. Engage in dialogue by disclosing the whereabouts of those who have been forcibly abducted from Japan, from the Republic of Korea, and from other countries.
February 7, 2014. The report of UN Commission of Inquiry for the DPRK describes in detail North Korea's many crimes against humanity. The UN demands that North Korea verify the fate of the abductees and ensure their return to their countries of origin. If any abductees are deceased, their remains should be repatriated. North Korea, however, continues to deny any involvement in the enforced disappearances. There is not even a single person in North Korea who was forcibly disappeared or is being detained against one's will. Communications related to such cases are the extension of the stereotyped, heinous anti-DPRK political plots by the forces hostile to North Korea, and therefore have nothing to do with the lofty humanitarian mission of your working group. There are currently 516 verified post-Korean War abductees being detained in the DPRK. 89% of them were working as fishermen at the time of their abduction. North Korea abducted South Koreans from all walks of life and in a variety of settings, from soldiers, police officers, passengers on a commercial aircraft, South Koreans living abroad, religious ministers, exchange students, and even high school students. Citizens Alliance for North Korean Human Rights, NKHR, has been addressing the abduction issue in a number of different ways. NKHR has been meeting regularly with the families of the abductees. Tae-oh Kim's son was suddenly abducted while he was at the beach with his friends. He was just a high school student at the time.
먼저 맨 납치해 온 사람들은 다 늙어서 그때 이제 78세가 되니까는 고등학생을 50명을 납치해 와라. 김일성이가 명령을 내렸대요. 그래서 그렇게 많이 납치됐대. 그러니까 딴 사람들은 물에 놀러 가시면 거기서 잘못된 줄 알지 납치된 걸 모르거든.
지난 78년 8월 전라남도 홍도 해수욕장으로 삐서갔다 실종됐던 당시 고교 3학년 홍건표 군과 이명우 의혹까지 제기되고 이들은 당시 북한 공작원에게 납북됐던 것으로 실종 19년 만에 안전기획.
So far, 5 abductions of high school students have been verified. they were abducted from the beach while on summer vacation.
해수욕장에서 야영하다가 실종됐던 당시 고교 1학년 김영남 군 역시 북한 공작원에 납북됐던 것이.
아버님은 개 찾으러 그게 굶어 가면서 돈도 없이 그렇게 댕기셨을 때 얼마나 힘들었겠냐고. 그렇게 한 일주일을 굶어 가면서 이렇게 찾으러 댕기고 산꼭대기 가서 부르고 우리 아들 이름 부르고 그러면 그렇게 신경을 쓰고 다니시다가 한쪽에 신경마비가 와서 6년을 앓다 돌아갔어. 그래도 나는 살아있게 걔가 거기 있다는 걸 들었지만 그래서 내가 그 다음에 산소에 가서 민규 살았대요. 민규 살았대요. 내가 얘기했어.
For the last 60 years, the South Korean government's attitude has been passive about this issue. In the meantime, the families of the abductees have entered old age. If action is delayed any longer, it will not only be impossible to determine the fate of the abductees, but the abductees themselves will fade into history forever. In 2004, Citizens Alliance for North Korean Human Rights, NKHR, began seeking a resolution to the abduction issue. So far, NKHR has submitted 44 petitions to the UN Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances, seeking information from the North Korean government about the abductees. NKHR has arranged meetings with experts from the UN Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances and the families of the abductees. NKHR also hosted an international conference with the Asian Federation Against Involuntary Disappearances to consider possible solutions. NKHR raises awareness and conducts research about the abductees and the difficulties that their families have had to face. Daegum and Nongso villages on Gojae Island, South Gyeongsang Province. Many families of the forcibly disappeared live in these two fishing villages. Since many of the abductees work together as fishermen on the same boats, the villagers share the pain of abduction together. The possibility that their loved ones could return one day has made it difficult for these families to leave their villages.
그러니까 이 시골에서는 뭐 새롭게 뭐 돈을 벌일 만한 그게 없잖아. 그러니까 부산을 이제 인천으로 뭐 이렇게 큰 항구에 가서 배를 타다 보니까 그 큰 배들은 항상 너른 바다에서 조업을 하다 보니까 그런 위험이 따르지. 그러다 보니까 어찌다가 납북이 됐지.
NKHR staff visited these villages to collect information about the abductees and the difficulties that their families have suffered.
유엔에는 이제 유엔 강제적 비자발적 실종에 관한 실무 그룹이라는 그런 강제 실종 관련해서 일하는 그룹이 있어요. 거기에 이제 진정서를 제출하기 위해서 저희가 이제 케이스들을 수집하고 인터뷰하기 위해서 방문했습니다. 그래서 저희가 이런 노력을 계속해서 북한이 조금 입장 변화가 생기고 국제적으로 압박을 많이 줄 수 있으면 좋겠습니다.
With much difficulty, the families slowly began sharing the stories of pain and sorrow that had been buried deep in their hearts. Along with experiencing the shock and sorrow of losing a loved one, the family members of the abductees were subjected to guilt by association. Because one of South Korea's top priorities at that time was preventing communism, a person's abduction to North Korea was considered a case of possible espionage and was enough to place his or her relatives under strict surveillance. Because they were labeled as guilty of being associated with a possible spy, family members were barred from certain occupations such as government work and faced restrictions on travel. Despite being innocent of any wrongdoing, family members were isolated from society and ostracized by their neighbors.
선풍기나 TV를 사도 이렇게 출처를 조사를 했었어요. 그러니까 할아버지 사촌 동생 집까지 취업을 못하게 하고 그렇게 했어요. 근데 저는 더 심했겠죠. 저도 고등학교 졸업할 때까지 감시를 하고 굉장히 심했었어요.
어머님은 그때 기억에 내가 쓰러지셨고 정말 뭐 집안이 완전히 막 뒤에 흔들리는 그런 느낌이었죠. 납북됐다는 게 상상이나 했겠습니까? 학교 교장까지 하시고 또 청와대 교육행정관까지 그때 내정되어 있었다가 하루아침에 아들 문제로 강제사직 당하고 저 아우지 탄광 보내듯이 강원도 산골에서 임시 노무원 생활을 강제 취업당하고 그 고통이 너무 크셨어요, 아버님이. 아들 보고 싶어서 소식이라도 들었으면 좋겠다 하다가 결국은 아무 소식도 못 들으시고 돌아가셨습니다.
Some of the abductees risked their lives to escape from North Korea and were able to return to their homes in South Korea.
지난달 25일 북한을 탈출한 뒤
Wook Il-chae is one of the abductees who escaped from North Korea. He returned home after 31 years. The abductees in North Korea long every day to return home, but they are not even able to express their longing.
북한에 납북되어 있는 사람은 겉으로 말 표현 못하지. 말 표현을 못해요. 예를 들어서 북한에서 야 이거 이래서 이번에 고향 나가기로 되는데 나가겠냐 안 나가겠냐 물어보잖아. 내한테 와서 물어본단 말이야. 네 가겠습니다. 선뜻 대답 못하고.
According to testimonies from abductees who escaped, abductees in North Korea are forced to show unconditional obedience to the North Korean authorities. Because they are placed under close surveillance and face discrimination, they can't even dream of returning home. However, the government of the country concerned South Korea continues to take a passive stance on the abduction issue. Ultimately, NKHR and the families of the abductees became increasingly outspoken, but North Korea continued to reject their requests to engage on this issue. The Japanese government has taken a different approach from the South Korean government. Japan has actively advocated for the Japanese nationals abducted by North Korea. For instance, it initiated a nationwide petition and visited the United States to raise awareness among the international community.
So it's one of the reasons he raised this issue as the most important. And at one of the press conferences he attended, he clearly stated that he is committed to resolve this issue while he is in office. I believe this will form a strong message against North Korea. I believe they will receive the message that until we can solve this problem, North Korea will not receive any support from Japan.
Before it is too late, we need the South Korean government and society to develop an interest in this issue and take action.
제일 힘든 거는 사실은 국민의 무관심이에요. 그리고 정부의 무관심이죠. 사실 정부가 직접적으로 나서서 이 할 수 있는 문제예요. 일본과 한국을 대비해 봤을 때 2014년 우리나라에서는 납북자 문제 예산이 3억이에요. 일본은 126억입니다. 이 문제만 이것만 보더라도 얼만큼 납북자 문제의 중요성을 가지고 있느냐가 대비가 되는 거거든요. 그래서 사실은 정부가 좀 더 적극적으로 나서서 이 문제를 해결하기 위해서 국제사회에 대한 노력도 필요하지만 국내에서도 대국민 홍보를 통해서 이쪽 문제에 관심을 가져야 되고.
Time is running short for the abductees and the families who are waiting for them. If we do not hurry, the fate of the abductees as well as North Korea's crimes against humanity may forever fade into history. It will take the support of everyone to bring the 516 abductees back to South Korea and home to their families.
생사 확인만이라도 국가에서 꼭 서두르셨으면 좋겠어요. 저도 이제 국민이 납치됐는데도 무조건 덮으려만 하는 게 참 너무 국가로서 세계적으로 부끄럽지 않나.
우리 형제가 납북되는 그런 고통을 겪어야 했고 또 우리는 납북자 가족으로 살아가야 되는 그 고통이라는 게 이루 말할 수가 없었습니다. 정부와 우리 국민들이 우리의 고통에 대해서 더 적극적으로 좀 관심을 가져주시고 또 우리의 고통을 좀 치유해 주시고 함께 나누는 이런 모습을 보고 싶습니다.
당신의 아버지가, 당신의 남편이, 당신의 아들이 납북돼서 몇십 년이 흘렀어요. 지금까지 아무런 소식을 알 수 없다면 어떻게 하시겠어요? 우리 그냥 잊어버릴까요? 오래전의 일이기 때문에 저는 이걸로 답변이 대신될 수 있다고 생각이 돼요.